Paul Barron. This is TechPath. ICP, Internet Computer, you guys probably know a little bit about this, this particular blockchain technology. If you're into the tech and the web, this one is very important because it has a potential to become something very special. We try to put these market movers together by compiling a lot of data. We bring in some research, we look at some of what's happening in the news category, we bring in some sentiment data, we mash it all together and give you guys hopefully a package on the back end that can help you either one, understand what's happening in that technology, or two, maybe an investment strategy that you can go out and start to develop yourself. Remember though, that as always, this is not investment advice. It's an educational and research package that's based on our own findings and options, things that we use to find our research and fulfill it. We're not financial advisors and highly recommend you do your own research, whether it's private or public investment. So make sure and stay tuned on that stuff as you guys are going. I want to jump to ICP and really kind of what it is, because ICP in itself is an unusual model for blockchain. And Dominic Williams, founder and chief scientist, has, I think, when I look at, I'm an internet guy, I'm a computer scientist, that was my background, worked with Microsoft, all that kind of stuff. So I've been in and around this for decades and have seen several sorts of innovations. I saw the 1996 evolution of the internet and kind of the buildup that what we saw with Tim Berners-Lee and what he was trying to do with the World Wide Web, where TCP/IP came from. So infrastructure, in fact, can be changed. It was on the cusp of kind of a breakout evolution, but I think we are in a place right now in our society where we potentially could be seeing some pretty interesting changes happening. I want to jump to the white paper and kind of this precursor of what ICP has given kind of as an evolution of where they think this is going. What they call it is the third great innovation in blockchain. You can kind of see the linear there of cryptocurrency in 2009, right after the great financial correction. Then you see smart contracts in 2015, which essentially was Ethereum. And then of course now they're talking about infinite blockchain, third invention, which is basically reimagining how you build everything. Now, Internet Computer is pretty straightforward in essence. What they're trying to do is replace the current internet, yes, that is right, the current internet as you know it, with a new setup and protocol that is much more, even more decentralized than what you may think the internet is today. So Internet Protocol, ICP, they've formed the first world's web speed and web servicing public blockchain network, which can grow to a capacity demand in its self-governing. That's kind of the big scenario here that plays into where they're going. But if you look at this stack that they've got here on this diagram, the ICP public cyberspace, that's essentially kind of the core. And then the protocol that basically plugs into the IP internet. And these things they call data centers, and they have this data center here that I want to kind of break down. It's a smart contract called a canister. And these canisters essentially are somewhat impenetrable nodes that basically house these contracts, and then those plug directly into the network and essentially create a host of number of canisters called code plus data, and then they can run them concurrently. So there's no on-chain capacity. It's basically a full DApp that can scale. You can kind of see the potential where this might be going, because that's the big issue. When you look at the internet, it was basically designed to withstand a nuclear strike. So is ICP. What's more, firewalls aren't needed to protect canister systems because smart contracts are basically tamper-proof thanks to the blockchain mathematics. So that's kind of the whole aspect of it. And they have this thing, this diagram right here that kind of breaks it out a little bit better. Canisters can serve web content directly to end users. Users can interact with blockchain services without holding tokens. That's a big deal. So if you look at how this all comes together through web HTTP and user devices, they serve content directly into these canisters. So essentially, it is basically setting up an internet that is unhackable. Now that's a big problem right now on the internet. If you've looked around our society over the last few months, you've already seen ransomware attacks, and a lot of that, I was talking to some of the guys at the Bitcoin conference this weekend, about these ransomware attacks, and they actually were talking about, because these ransom attacks have essentially been queued up to look like Russia, even though many people think it might actually be China that's pushing these in. But the bigger point is they're using a technology that is like a Trojan horse. It basically layers in a certain set of code instructions on these systems, and it starts to collect and look for access points months in advance. And then once that it potentially attaches to the system and is able to get in, it waits for the right time. So I think of that as it's kind of like a switch that someone can throw and say, all right, we're going to release the Kraken, so to speak, drop in a ransomware, and boom, we've got a meat supply system, a fuel system that is basically under our control. This is where ICP would completely intercept and eliminate, because it's creating these canisters that are essentially isolated from the rest of the internet, the nodes. And that's the thing that makes it very valuable. And if you look at something else, which I wanted to kind of break it down here, the internet computer can be used to build many things better. Tokenized internet services, this would be huge. This is another thing that I think a lot of people don't really understand about tokenization and why it's so important. It is really the next evolution of HTTP and where the internet could be. So that's a big one. Pan-industry platforms, another major opportunity, and then DeFi and smart contracts. I think that's just going to happen. We won't be calling it DeFi anymore. It'll just be finance. And then enterprise systems, which essentially are all the ecosystems out there that basically ended up getting hacked a few weeks ago. Those are enterprise network systems. Those are systems that are basically plugged in to a backbone internet and basically providing core data structure to send commands from one place to the next, including our own power grid, all operates on enterprise type systems. This is huge. Now, I know I've been kind of going on about the technology. I want to jump into a couple of things here. Let me run over here to a news story. This was one by Forecast, and let's jump over to Forecast real quick. So Forecast basically says ICP takes the world by storm. Will Ethereum and be the next Bitcoin? This is kind of the scenario, but ICP is the big one right here, and I want to kind of break down some areas that I highlighted on this guy right here. So basically, Definity's new unveiled ICP has stunned many in the crypto space, with ICP token now being listed, and it's now in the 8th spot on CoinMarketCap. Official ranking just days after its launch. Thing jumped up to 41.9 billion. You can kind of see its move. The cryptocurrency currently valued at 339. This was back when this was written, according to CoinMarketCap, and up to 132% after it crashed from a high of 737. So that a typical, token release. That's definitely one of those scenarios that does happen on an early release. Like, although ICP as token may have launched only recently, catching much of the crypto world by surprise, the project has been in development for the past 5 years. So this is basically developed by a Zurich-based not-for-profit organization, Definity. And let me kind of zoom in on this right here. The one right here that is interesting to me is the venture interest from Andreessen Horowitz. Andreessen Horowitz is probably one of the biggest VCs in Silicon Valley. And for them to jump on this, they understand there is something brewing in Denmark, so to speak. This is a potential that it could really kind of move to the next the next evolution of where the internet could be, and where just general computing can go. And this will include mobile as well. So not just necessarily what you're thinking as the internet. It's the internet of everything. Definity's blockchain, I want to jump back to this article. Definity's blockchain platform for smart contracts promotes itself as being able to operate at internet speed, which you got to be able to do. ICP's token underlying network uses smart contracts and is expected to be a new major competitor to Ethereum. This is huge. Now, you've got Ethereum killers supposedly like Polkadot, Binance Smart, Cardano, and Solana. Those are the ones that have kind of been holding their own. But Wilson Withiam, an analyst at cryptocurrency research firm Masari, said a lot of people are looking for the next best thing, which is the newest, shiniest token. The market seems assured that network just launched, but on the other hand, it's a high-profile project. So this is the thing that I'm getting at, is that ICP has such a lofty expectation and potential. I'm wondering if ICP may be too early. In other words, they've been building this for 5 years, and yet we have not seen the rollout of such kind of need, even though the social media aspect of what we've seen in basically centralization of everybody moving into one place like Facebook, Twitter. This is back when you think about where the internet came from. AOL, that was all Element was there until we got to the free and open internet. Before the era of social media, there was an era there that we saw a lot of that. That's where I think ICP is trying to kind of replace this. And there are some good things here. And I do think that they are a potential for really becoming something very, very special. But my concern is I think they're a little bit early. All right, so let's jump over to TradingView real quick and kind of roll into this of why I think they may be a little early. And you can kind of see these were the layers of where the coin came from. It hit the, hit the marketplaces and absolutely exploded. People made some great strides on this. It was a good investment, and of course ended up paying off for a lot of those, except for those in this downturn right here. But what I wanted to track was the sentiment flow of ICP, and you can kind of see it right here back in May 21st when we saw the big correction. And there you have it right there at 59.33. Not a bad sentiment score, but definitely not one of the high flyers. It continued its track to fall. And here you are on May 30, May 31, and here we are on June 2nd, where it drops down to 51.03. A pretty big drop from the 59.33. And then even after this little bit of a spike right here that we saw on June 3rd, we saw sentiment again correct down to 49.71. So this concerns me that we're seeing a continuous decline in sentiment. So when you think about sentiment, one of the things that you have to put into your factor is what is the amplification. Amplification is something we measure here quite a bit, and we've done it for almost 8 years of trending against keyword analysis, the volume and the amplification of something that's happening around a particular topic. And this can be a financial topic, a trending topic in pop culture, all those kind of things. Amplification plays into this as to whether or not you're going to see a move in one direction or another. So I want to jump over to a quick chart that we pulled up here. And the chart is sentiment and amplification. This is one that we just finished up on, and what we looked at was ICP, Cardano, and Polkadot. Now, there's two things here. May and June are the two core data points that we wanted to kind of harness. One, because May was when we saw the massive correction, and June is when we're seeing some of these projects start to bump around a little bit, both up and down. And the key there is when you see projects that are moving in May and June and holding on either in sentiment or holding on in advancements, that's the big thing here. So you look May, June, these are all sentiment data. ICP down from 55 down to 49. You can kind of see that movement there, but their amplification number is declining. That's the biggest scenario here. Even though you might have lowering sentiment, and it definitely does happen from time to time, amplification not always is in decline. Sometimes on lowering sentiment, amplification can actually be on a rise. But in this particular case, ICP is setting at 40.07. If you look at ADA or Cardano, 52.91, they bumped their sentiment up, had some nice moves. We saw that over the last basically 10 days. Sentiment rise considerably in June, and their amplification number is on a skyrocket right now, which tells me we're going to continue to see good moves from Cardano. Same thing here with Polkadot, a little bit longer term, and this is something I've talked about in a Polkadot video I've done, is that amplification for Polkadot is holding in at 61.42, which is not too bad considering it had a very slight sentiment move up between May and June. And again, and Polkadot only had a small lift. So the comparison here, when you look at ICP, Cardano, and Polkadot, because these all have some comparisons, the problem that ICP is really dealing with, I think, is the complexity of the challenge that they're trying to overcome. Polkadot, Cardano, they're becoming vehicles for the DeFi space. ICP essentially is trying to recreate the entire internet through a blockchain protocol that essentially would enable all things. So if you can imagine how it's different than what it was in 1996 and when the internet was essentially really started, the World Wide Web really started to take form and take action. It took a while for that to roll out. Imagine what that's going to require today. Now, sure, speed of development much faster, money not a problem, adoption rate probably not a problem if you can get some big wins in the space. And I think that's where ICP is faltering. They got the big splash on just awareness and kind of the early adopters that said, oh my God, this is an absolute cool project and one that I want to be a part of. And then the fall off occurred. Then of course the correction came and it basically just continued to pound on it. I think ICP is in for a rocky road. I do not necessarily think this is one that's going to pull out anytime soon. It is a long-term play. If you're in ICP and you got in high, it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while. If you're in say the $100 range where it's floating around right now, is it a buy or a hold? You know, I would probably hold right there, but I think it's going to see some low hits over the next few months, mainly because people just do not understand really the capacity and the functionality of what it's trying to do. And I think its overall charge of wanting to do what it is attempting to do is a great one. And it's definitely one that the internet needs, but it's one that I think is going to take some time to play out. Now, does it mean ICP does not fly off the charts in 22 or 23? There's a lot of development yet to be done here, and I think there's going to be a lot of very unique innovation that happens for ICP. So keep your eye on this one. Don't put it on the shelf just yet. I would definitely put it on my watch list and stay very close to it. And of course, if you guys are already invested in it, I definitely wouldn't sell it. I mean, your position might be there. If you want to flush an altcoin, you know, maybe some other projects that might be worthy of it over ICP, I would kind of hold there. And I would invite ICP on the show here because we get, you know, producers. We've had Algorand on. We've got some other guys coming on soon. So we really want to dive in a little bit more. I think we understand the tech, but I think we need to get the news out there to really help other people understand what it's doing and how quickly some of these projects can roll out. So if you guys know anybody over at the ICP team, send them our way. The way to do it is just producer@revernetworks.com. You can also hit me up on Twitter @PaulBaron. You guys, of course, stay tuned right here. We love to have you. Make sure and subscribe to the video. It's the best way you can help out the channel. And, you know, share it. This is something you could send to a friend, help them not invest in everything out there that's going in the altcoin space because everybody thinks, I think, that the altcoin space is just blowing up. But anyway, stay tuned right here for more great content from TechPath and the Paul Baron Network. We'll catch you next time.